we want to introduce you to a holistic approach to security. We've been doing security for a number of years, and one of the key things that we've seen over the last 5 years is that we need a different approach. The approach that we're currently following as a security industry is simply not working. It's not working. And why do I say it's not working? In that, on one hand, we're spending more money on security than we've ever done before. In fact, our security spend is projected to go up. It's going to triple over the next 3 years. Now, if we do that, at the same time, the breaches are increasing. You know, if I look at the growth rates here, we've got 23% compound growth of security breaches. So we're spending more money, yet there's more compromises. Now, clearly, there's something amiss there. And the question is, what is the challenge? Why is this happening? You know, because I think to a large extent, Matt talked about it already, and that as a security industry, and with great respect to our vendor partners here, we're very often problem focused in security. There's a big issue, the latest threat, phishing, advanced persistent threats, whatever the website compromises, and we tend to focus on individual problems, and then we focus on the technology to plug that individual problem without taking a complete approach. So which is why I guess the security spending is going up, but at the same time we're not fixing all the problems. So now, in this backdrop of security spending going up, we also have our business leaders expecting us to do more with less. So we have a challenge. The security compromises are up. You know, we're spending more money, and which kind of starves the rest of the business of money because we need to plug this kind of important problem. So clearly, we're not all sitting on our hands doing nothing, you know, idly wishing the days away. You know, while those pesky hackers out there are busy compromising us, and we're spending money like it's going out of fashion. So the challenge is becoming harder. We know that security is becoming more challenging. There's more threats, and you know, the threats are becoming more sophisticated. They're becoming more targeted. You know, when I spoke to organizations 10 years ago, a lot of organizations the response back would be that we're not really, it's not a threat for us really. People who will hack us, who will try to compromise us. You know, you have this whole thing about who would want to steal our data. That whole thing, it was a very common refrain, and most people said that, but actually what's starting to happen now is that it's become everybody's problem. I don't think there's anybody in this room that can rightly say they've got no fear of being compromised. They've got no fear of having a security issue within the organization. You know, that's become everybody's problem. It's becoming more targeted. It's becoming more challenging. At the same time, with what's happening in the world, there's a lot more regulation. There's a lot more expectation from regulatory authorities and from lawmakers for us to comply to standards and procedures. You know, for us to handle data in special ways and for us to comply to regulatory frameworks. So these. At the same time, our users aren't doing as much favors either. You know, they're consuming IT in different ways. You know, we're becoming mobile. You know, we're starting to use data in different places. You know, and this whole thing about consumerization, which we talked about for the last 5 years, is mainstream now. It's not if it will happen, it's happened. So as a consequence, you know, this security challenge is changing. The businesses are changing at the same time. You know, so as if this whole thing about security becoming more complicated isn't enough. Our businesses are coming in saying, well, you know, we want to put some of our data in the cloud. You know, we want to have a lot of mobile workers. Remote access has become mainstream. As I said, our organizations are becoming 24/7 now. Now, we have these two other acronyms there. The new acronym on you, perhaps, is bring your own application. So people are starting to use their own applications. People are walking through the door, running their own applications, using data and consuming data and storing data in ways that we weren't anticipating or expecting in the past. So all of these different things basically means that we don't have a chance really. You know, we're sitting with limited investment. You know, there's a lot of focus on new technologies. You know, new mousetraps. You know, there's the latest threat. We've got advanced persistent threats. We've got these issues, and we need to buy this technology to fix that issue. Phishing. You know, whatever the latest threat is. You know, we kind of tend to focus a lot on the latest threat, and which kind of brings me to the next point. And I think Gartner wrote about it quite recently to say that companies, to a large extent, are struggling because they're focusing too much on high-profile threats. You know, it's a little bit like the CIO. You know, they should ban IT magazines from business class or first class. You know, because CIO comes down and he's just read something in the magazine and it comes through the door and says, well, you know, what are we doing about that? What are we doing about that? And I think sometimes that kind of makes people lose track of the bigger picture because they're too focused on a very specific issue. One way of approaching this, and we're building this secure data strategy, but this strategy is not a new strategy. It's a strategy that's been around for ages. This is almost, in a sense, going back to basics. So how do I approach security in a structured, proper way and have a holistic view? Matt talked about 360 security, trademark by somebody else, I'm sure. He talked about 360 security. How do I take a holistic approach to security? How do I actually make sure that I'm actually dealing with the threats in a structured way and I actually have a chance here? And there's a couple of subtleties, though, which I'll talk about, which are quite important. Before I get onto that, I want to talk about our vision and beliefs, and I want to talk about it from two perspectives. I want to talk about it from a customer's perspective and from what we're doing about it perspective, okay? So the first thing is, ultimately what this is all about, it's not about security. We care about security, you would think I've wasted a large part of my life if I didn't care about security. I've always been involved in security companies. So for me, it's something I really care about and something that's important for me. But actually, you know what? It's not about security. It's about enabling our users and our customers to use the internet and new technologies in an unfettered way without fear and hindrance. It's all about enablement, really. So now, looking at the framework, now Matt talked a little bit about ADPR and what it stands for. And really, the framework is very, very simply all about understanding the assets you're trying to protect. What is it that we're trying to protect? The next thing is putting systems in place to actually detect issues in real time, understanding what's happening out there. The security challenge is becoming quite complicated. We know that we're not winning the battle. We know that despite the fact that we're spending more money, there's more compromises. So now it's all about saying, you know what, compromises, they're not okay, but they will happen. It's all about detecting them as quickly as possible, understanding what they actually mean. So it's having detection. So it's not appropriate anymore not to have the ability to see attacks when they happen. Those days are gone. You have to assume there's going to be issues. It's just about how quickly you pick it up and what you do about it when you pick it up. Now, taking all that lot, understanding what you're trying to protect, having the ability to detect issues, feeding that back into your security technologies, and we have some fantastic partners here that provide great technology that enable us to protect our networks. Given that we understand what we're trying to protect, we have the ability to detect issues, feed that back into our protection mechanisms, which now actually means that our protection mechanisms become more effective. It's not just a cold piece of technology sitting there in isolation, trying to fix the latest threat, that somebody came in through the door and said, what are we doing about X, Y, Z? Then the last point here is all about response. Response is all about saying, okay, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And that's a harsh statement to make, to say it's not a matter of if you'll be compromised, it's a matter of when you get compromised. And the question is, what do you do when that sad eventuality happens? Now, a compromise could be anything from somebody losing a mobile phone to somebody hijacking your Twitter feed. It could be anything like that. And what are we going to do when that happens? Who's going to be tasked with dealing with that? Do I have the right people? Do I have the right partners? Do I have the right tools to actually deal with these sad eventualities? So it's really about saying, okay, for me to have a complete approach, I need to be able to assess my risk, detect issues in real time, have the technologies to protect me, and then have the ability and wherewithal to respond to issues when they happen. And when you have those things, I think have a structured approach to security, and you have more of a chance to, you're never going to completely remove risk, but you can at least manage risk in a better way. Part of the reason why we acquired SensePost is that we appreciate this problem is not becoming easier. This problem is becoming more difficult. It's a hard problem to solve. It's not an easy problem to solve. And in order for us to do so, we need to have access to really clever people that really are on the forefront of security, that understands what the real threats are, what the emerging threats are, and what they mean to you. And to then feed all of that back into our ability to detect stuff in real time, to assess information, protect our customers. And so we are creating SecureData Labs, and what SecureData Labs is, it's staffed by some pretty smart people whose job it is to understand what the real issues are. And if you haven't seen SensePost yet, but they certainly are rated as one of the top 5 security consultancies in the world. They're well known for the security research and the work they do in the industry. Very well regarded organization. Well, I should say SecureData Labs, SensePost. If I look at our capabilities, now I talked about monitoring and I talked about the ability to do threat detection in real time. How do we do this? Now, SecureData, we've had a platform forever called Affinity Secure, and what Affinity Secure was about is all about monitoring infrastructures. Monitoring stuff for confidentiality, integrity, and availability, which is great. And that works, and it actually, about 20% of our calls that comes into our operation centers from our monitoring system. That's fantastic. The next level up is to say, okay, if I take that as a basis, we need to take that information, then start correlating that across different customers and suck in information from known threat sources, from known compromised sites, looking at IP addresses that are known to have taken part of compromises recently. And when I bring all those things together, that now gives me threat intelligence. So for us, it's quite a small step up to do that. Now, the last bit is we are a service company. Our vision for the business has always been to be a service company. And why that's important, why I mention it as a specific thing, is that when we make decisions as a management team, it's all about service. What is it that we need to do to provide the right service for our customers to secure their networks? It's all about that. And so every decision we make is informed by that. Now, we clearly work with technologies and we implement technologies, but that's secondary in our world. It's all about service.